So as Alex mentioned in the intro, all these tech efforts are completely connected to the digital rights violations that people face around the world. Now, internet shutdowns are a pretty bad one in the big picture because they silence an entire nation. A government can control the public opinion, and they can also control international opinions. They can really silence the kind of activism that people are trying to do. And the stories that we hear about at OFF, for example, this week, several of them have been silenced, or there have been attempts to silence them, by shutting off the internet. So Netblocks is my organization. We track internet freedom around the world using telemetry and data. The goal is to see when governments shut off the internet and report it and really make noise so that it can stop happening. This takes a lot of measurement and it takes a lot of tech that we develop, but it's also investigative journalism to validate incidents and find out why it's happening and doing policy work to try to get that fixed. We've tracked 3,000 internet shutdown incidents since 2017, and each one of those has been published and it's also been seen around the world. If that hadn't happened, then those stories would not have been told, and some of those may not have come to light. Those incidents, there may not have been the measures that need to happen. So the internet is increasingly weaponized. I think JSL was just going through some of the ways this is happening with technology, and there's AI, which is only finding new ways to do that. So this is a real problem when it comes to the proliferation of government's abilities to shut off, both at nation scale and locally, your connectivity. We've been tracking this using various measurement techniques, both basically measuring the whole internet and scanning it, and then seeing the deltas. So you're looking for differences in connectivity, and then you say, oh, look, that country's gone off, and then you try to find out why. Is it censorship? Is it maybe a non-censorship incident? And that's how you then get that information out. And then journalists need that verification to be able to report about these stories. Even if they have a good lead, but they don't have the telemetry and the data sets, then often these incidents go uncovered. And when the shutdown goes uncovered, the incident that's being covered up also doesn't get covered. So you're actually looking at very serious human rights violations. I'm going to touch on a couple of them, which are no longer reported. For example, Kazakhstan is an interesting case. It's one of the countries where people are rising up. They want to have their voices heard, but it's incidents like these where we can see the systematic shutting off of connectivity, and then saying that, hey, this is happening, let's us do something about it. And in particular, you find that there are also impacts on things like, say, Bitcoin. During that incident, the global value of Bitcoin actually dropped 10%, and the hash rate dropped by 14%. So this has an impact on people's ability to conduct transactions beyond that country itself, because it breaks the international system and it breaks people's ability to connect. Because you don't, okay, that's great, you've decentralized everything, but you still need to connect to that central blockchain, for example, to transact. So it's also harming communities' ability to have that independent financial freedom that they need. In other cases, we've seen elections, mass-scale election fraud, where governments just switch off the internet while they steal votes. Belarus is an example of that, which I think was very striking. And we tracked, obviously, the main election period when the internet was shut down, but we also tracked the government switching off the internet week after week for over a year after these elections. So really, just to prevent people getting out there talking about the freedoms that they've lost. And that has serious impacts. And if you don't track these and report on the shutdowns, then you're letting them win. The other incident was Venezuela. Well, I say incident, but there were over 300 separate reports that we did. So it became almost like a pattern that the government has used to silence all types of any types of activism happening online. In this case, partial internet shutdowns. So they're not necessarily the whole internet, but they will target social media platforms, social platforms, and also the publishing platforms that activists use. So we also track that. And it's got to the point where sometimes they don't want to do it because we make enough noise that it's got that Streisand effect. So it's actually worse for them if they shut it off as compared to just keeping it on, which is mission done. And we also have, Yeah. Iran, which was another major shutdown, where the internet shutdown was used to cover up mass killings, and that's the kind of thing we want to end. So yeah, also it's quite useful for tracking storms and other incidents which can impact human rights tangentially. So yeah, you can catch me here later if you want.